Okay, so my name is Matthias Damm. I'm involved in both the technical working groups on the OPC UA side, but also on the implementation side. So we are mainly technology provider for a lot of the vendors that you see on these demo walls. And we do like the basic OPC UA functionality, and that's why we're also very heavily involved in all the prototyping for OPC UA-FX. Just a very short, like I said, we do mainly OPC UA development kits for different languages, different scaling. So you can run the smallest ones on like sensor level devices, but we have also SDKs that run more on the IT cloud side. We heard about like the beauty of OPC UA is you can scale like the communication on all levels, and where we are coming from, and you mentioned that also. Today, I would say most of the controllers have an OPC UA server available. And you can access the data and at like all these classic use cases for HMI applications, also like everything where the data flows from a controller up to the next levels, even up to IT, that is all working. And there's maybe with this pure client server model, you have maybe sometimes some challenges, but I think that is more or less working today. And the good news is OPC UA-FX is not a complete replacement for all of that. It's a few additional bubbles in that big picture. So if we maybe for Peter the bubbles are too small. we have safety at UA-FX, but in the overall picture, what is very important is the whole pub/sub functionality we added besides the pure client server communication model. And OPC UA-FX is sitting on top of this all basic functionality. So it's using client server for all the configuration parts and for all the connection establishment. I will explain in a second what connections are in FX. And then it's using the pub/sub communication for the cyclic communication. But it's also just using functionality that is also used for other use cases. So also a lot of the IT cloud connectivity will use pub/sub as a important feature piece. And so if you look at the pure pub/sub functionality, we have the controller communication was an important use case from the very first day where we started with pub/sub. But we have also much more use cases. So a lot of it's related to messaging to IT. So either you have message brokers, for example, using MQTT as a transport protocol, or use UDP multicast. So a lot of even automation systems use UDP multicast today for some use cases. So we had not only like the controller use case, we had much more general messaging scheme for one-to-many or many-to-many communication. So how does then what adds FX adds to the picture is like on the top level what we call an automation component in FX. It defines like a part that describes the asset as an important part of the management of the devices, and then we have something called functional entities. So functional entities is like a functional unit inside the automation component. So you can have multiple functional entities, and such a functional entity then has for the communication aspect mainly input and output data. There's other stuff like configuration data, diagnostic information, but when we talk about the communication aspect, it is mainly the input-output data in a functional entity. And now what OPC UA-FX adds on top of the pub/sub communication is mainly a pattern on how you set up these communication relations between functional entities. So a FX connection is a communication relation between two functional entities in two automation components. So that's very simple. So if you need to learn more new terms, automation component is something that represents an OPC UA, FX enabled device. A functional entity is something that inside such a device that can represent input-output data and other functionality in general, but for the communication input-output data. And the FX connection is one communication relation between the two, but you can have multiple communication relations. So if you have multiple functional entities on the two devices that need to communicate to each other, you can establish multiple of these FX connections through one POP-sub communication network. Okay, so, and then we have different connection types, and also to compare it with the pure POP-sub functionality. For pure POP-sub, you configure either a publisher or a subscriber. And for a publisher, you just tell the publisher, use these 5 or 6 variables and send them as a data set to a middleware. Could be a MQTT broker, could be a UDP multicast address. Then you configure the publishers, and then based on the publishers that you have in the network, you can configure subscribers, and you tell the subscribers, go to this address or listen on this UDP multicast address and filter on these IDs, whatever, to receive data and to process it. And so the pure POP-sub model is completely decoupled. So the publisher knows nothing about the subscribers, and the subscribers know something about the publishers, but they can subscribe from different publishers. They don't need to have a direct communication relation to them. That makes the one-to-many and many-to-many communication very easy, but you have no relation between the two. And now with OPC AFX, what is added on top is exactly this relation. Because especially if you have a controller talking to a device, you need to know if the communication is working. Because if it's not working, you need to bring up some alarms or recover and provide diagnostic capabilities. And so there are different types, and I would say that the right one, the unidirectional without heartbeat, is probably not really that it's an option, but it's not the standard one. The middle two are either you have bidirectional communication, so data flows in both directions, or you have data flow just in one direction, in the other direction you have a heartbeat. So that allows both sides to detect if the communication partner is still working and there. So you have a logical detection of communication problems on that level of FX connections, but on a big scale, you have many of these FX connections through the same communication channels and same communication network, but you're able to do the diagnostics of these communication relations and if they're working really on functional entity connection level. So this is like let's say the main benefit of FX for the POP-sub communication is to have this bundling of two applications together and to have diagnostic capabilities and detection if the communication has problems. Okay, so that's to show you that it's real. So this is something we test in PlugFest since like 2 years or 3 years. So we have the demo. But last 2 weeks ago, we had the first time where we had a regular IOP workshop of the OPC Foundation where we really test products, maybe sometimes better versions of products, but we test in a real network environment with a lot of products. It was the first time we added OPC AFX testing in such a standard IOP workshop that is typically like 3 times a year, once in Japan, once in US, and once in Europe. And what I have here is I have UA Expert, so if you work with OPC UA, probably you have used UA Expert before. It's just a general test client for OPC UA, and I have 3 servers, like one is with our high performance SDK, which is like a C-based SDK, and 2 servers with a C++ SDK. There's one term I didn't introduce. So all 3 are automation components having functional entities. But you need somebody who's establishing the connections between the automation components and is monitoring them. And that's called connection manager. And the middle one is acting as connection manager, establishing the communication relations between the 3 components. So now we go to the demo. So what I have prepared, I already started 3 servers, and I have the OPC client server connection to these 3 servers. So that is prepared, and so if like this is just like what you always can do is you can browse the address space, and you can, for example, subscribe to the output variables so to see they are simulated, they're changed. Now we have in the next version we will have a OPCFX configuration view, so you can do like some configuration and testing with your experts. So I just add a so-called connection configuration set. And so a connection configuration set is a collection of these communication relations, FX connection. But you can load multiple of these connection sets to a connection manager. So then I say add a connection. And now I choose like my, so this is the high performance SDK server. And then so this demo servers have multiple functional entities. So I select one functional entity here called, that has some simple data types and string, and one string, and I choose the connection manager, or the automation component inside the connection manager, and I choose the same functional entity. And there's one feature where these functional entities can have so-called pre-configured data sets. So you have like a predefined interfaces in there, and then it's very easy you just plug them together like plugs, and they fit together. So that makes it easy. If you have everything pre-engineered to have this configuration later, it makes it very easy. So that's the first one. And then I add a second one from connection manager to the second AC. Okay, so now the connection manager is typically running in one of these components, but your expert also allows you to test these connections before you deploy them. So we can just create the connections, and then we can look at them and see, okay, the data is flowing. So that's fine, and then we can also, if we look at the automation components, you can see these. So the middle one has 2 connections, and the other 2 have just 1 connection at the moment. And we disconnect. Okay. So now your expert is connected with the user, with the admin user. So your expert was able to do that. So I say, okay, I want to download this to a connection manager. So I can now download that to that connection manager. And if I go in here, then I can do the same thing I did before. Say, let's do that, test that. And now I get an error because the connection manager has no rights on the second automation component to push the data, to establish the connections. So now I can go into that second component and can manage the role. So there's a role called connection administrator. And since these devices work headless, I would not add a user. So I just tell the server to say, allow a certain application to do that. Then I choose the connection manager. And then it should work now. So if I do that again, oh, yeah, I need to, I think it's like a partial. Okay, now do that again. And now you see the connection is working. And if I go in and I see the connections here again, but now it's not established from this GUI, it's established from one of these components. And if I go in and I see also the communication flow, so yeah, communication is gone. Okay, so that was my demo. And I think I have one slide left. So what we have today is like I said, we have tooling to develop these automation components. So we call a tool called UA Modeler, where you can load the standard FX models, but you can also create like your vendor-specific, like device-specific model. You can create code out of these models, and then like add your business logic to that code and compile that with one of the SDKs. With the high-performance SDK, with the one for the device level, this feature is already released. So to build the automation component with the high-performance SDK is already in the released version. With the C++ SDK, we have automation component and also connection manager functionality. There will be a release like in two or 3 weeks that will have the automation component. The connection manager will not be included because there is some spec release in May. We need to wait for the spec release to have also that part released, but we already provide that to customers. And then, like I said, what I have shown to you is like if you have your FX product, you can test with UA Expert or also during development to check the functionality of the product. And the version of UA Expert that will have that FX functionality will also be released like the next 1 or 2 months. So that's very close to release. And okay, thank you.